take a breath. Not the rushed kind. The kind that reminds you you're still here. Because if we're being real, you haven't been fully living. You've been surviving. Waiting. Holding back. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for permission. Waiting to feel ready. And that waiting, it's costing you everything. Somewhere along the way, you learn to play it safe. To stay quiet. To not want too much. To not move too fast. To not stand out too hard. You didn't decide that. It was taught to you. Little by little, you were trained to pause your own life for the comfort of others. To delay your growth so nobody feels threatened. To explain yourself so nobody feels uncomfortable. And now you're tired. Not physically tired. Soul tired. Because deep down, you know there's more in you. More discipline. More hunger. More potential that hasn't even been touched yet. But potential means nothing if you never act on it. Let's be honest. How many times have you felt the urge to change your life and then talked yourself out of it? How many times did you promise yourself, I'll start soon? And then weeks turned into months. Months into years? That's not laziness. That's fear wearing a familiar face. Fear of failing. Fear of being judged. Fear of becoming someone people no longer recognize. So you stay where it's predictable, even if it's painful, even if it's draining. Because pain you know feels safer than uncertainty you don't. But here's the truth nobody tells you. Staying the same is also a risk, and it's the most expensive one. Every day you delay, you lose confidence. Every time you ignore that inner push, it gets quieter. Not because it's gone, because you stopped listening. Right now, your life is on pause. Not because you can't move forward, but because you're waiting for a moment that doesn't exist. There is no perfect time. There is no magical motivation. There is no sign coming from the universe. There's just a decision. And decisions don't wait for you to feel ready. They demand courage first, clarity later. Look at your life. Are you actually living the way you want, or just managing expectations? Are your days building you, or slowly draining you? Because comfort has a hidden cost, and that cost is growth. The longer you stay comfortable, the harder it becomes to move. The longer you stay silent, the harder it becomes to speak up. The longer you settle, the more your standards shrink. And one day you wake up wondering when you became this version of yourself. That's not happening today. This is the moment you stop pressing pause. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when you feel confident. Now. You don't need a full plan. You don't need validation. You don't need everyone to understand. You need momentum. One choice. One action. One step that proves to yourself you're serious. Because the truth is, your future self is watching, and they're waiting for you to stop hesitating. This isn't about motivation. It's about identity. You don't need to become someone new. You need to return to who you were before fear took control. And that starts with one question. Are you done living on pause? Or are you ready to press play? Because once you do, nothing stays the same. If you chose to press play, understand this first. Everything will resist you. Not because you're wrong, but because comfort hates disruption. The moment you decide to move forward, doubt shows up. Old habits pull you back. People question you. Your own mind tries to negotiate. It whispers things like, slow down. Don't rush. Why now? Who do you think you are? That voice isn't intuition. It's fear trying to stay in control. Comfort has kept you alive, but it has never made you powerful. And the longer you stay comfortable, the more expensive it becomes to leave. Because comfort doesn't just keep you safe. It keeps you small. You already know this feeling. That tightness in your chest when you think about change. That urge to do more, be more, followed by immediate hesitation. That cycle of motivation at night and excuses in the morning. That's the cost of comfort. Comfort tells you to wait. Comfort tells you to prepare more. Comfort tells you to observe while others act. And slowly, without realizing it, you start watching life instead of living it. Let's get real. Nothing great comes from staying where you are. Not confidence. Not discipline. Not self-respect. Those are built when you do hard things before you feel ready. Most people don't fail because they try and lose. They fail because they never fully start. They stay stuck in planning, in thinking, in consuming motivation without applying it. And that's dangerous because information without action creates frustration. And frustration, when ignored, turns into self-doubt. You begin to question yourself, your ability, your potential. Not because you lack it, but because you're not using it. Potential unused becomes pain. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you reinforce a habit of avoidance, a habit of delay, a habit of settling, and habits shape identity. At some point, you stop saying, "I'm waiting," and start believing, "This is just who I am." That's the trap. The truth is, the version of you that you want to become already exists, but it's buried under comfort, excuses, and fear of discomfort. Growth doesn't start with motivation. It starts with pressure. Pressure forces clarity. Pressure reveals priorities. Pressure shows you what actually matters. That's why avoiding pressure keeps you stuck. You want confidence? You earn it by doing things that scare you. You want discipline? You build it by acting when you don't feel like it. You want self-respect? You gain it by keeping promises to yourself. There is no shortcut. The reason you feel behind isn't because you're incapable. It's because you've been negotiating with yourself for too long. You've been saying, "I'll start when I feel ready. I'll change when things slow down. I'll go all in when conditions improve." But conditions don't improve first. You do. The people who change their lives don't have less fear. They just stop obeying it. Fear never disappears. You just learn to move with it. And here's something most people won't admit. The pain of staying the same eventually hurts more than the pain of change. That's when transformation becomes unavoidable. Right now, you're standing at that edge. You can feel it. The restlessness. The dissatisfaction. The sense that you're meant for more than this routine. That's not a coincidence. That's your potential demanding attention. But potential doesn't beg. It waits. And if you ignore it long enough, it fades. Not because it's gone, but because you've trained yourself not to respond. This is where most people quit. Not at failure, but at discomfort. They confuse discomfort with danger. They mistake resistance for a sign to stop. But resistance is proof you're moving in the right direction. Think about it. Everything that made you stronger in the past was uncomfortable at first. Every level up required tension. Every breakthrough came with doubt. Yet somehow, when it comes to your future, you expect ease. That expectation is what's holding you back. Growth feels heavy before it feels empowering. Change feels chaotic before it feels aligned. That doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're transitioning. And transitions are uncomfortable by nature. If you want a different life, you need a different tolerance level. A tolerance for discomfort. A tolerance for uncertainty. A tolerance for being misunderstood. Because not everyone will clap when you change. Some people liked you better when you were predictable. Some benefited from your hesitation. Some were comfortable with you not outgrowing them. Their reactions are not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to your future. The future version of you is built by what you do now. When it's hard. When it's inconvenient. When no one is watching. That version doesn't need motivation. They need consistency. And consistency is a decision you make daily, not a feeling you wait for. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. So ask yourself, what habits are you reinforcing right now? The habit of action or the habit of delay? Because every choice votes for the person you're becoming. This is the point where comfort starts losing its grip. Not because it disappears, but because you finally see its cost. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You realize that staying where you are is no longer neutral. It's actively holding you back. And that realization changes everything. This is not the end. This is the build-up. Because once you accept discomfort as part of growth, you unlock something powerful. Momentum. And momentum changes identity. At some point, excuses lose their power. Not because life gets easier, but because you finally see through them. You realize that the reason you haven't moved forward isn't lack of time. It's not lack of resources. It's not lack of support. It's lack of commitment. That truth stings, because commitment removes hiding places. Excuses feel comfortable because they protect your ego. They give you something to blame. They make delay feel justified. But once you're aware, excuses stop sounding logical. They start sounding like fear. And fear hates exposure. You already know your excuses. Everyone does. I'm not ready yet. I need more confidence. I'll start when things settle down. I don't have the energy right now. They sound reasonable. They sound mature. They sound responsible. But they all lead to the same place. Nowhere. Here's the hard truth. You don't become disciplined by waiting for discipline. You don't become confident by waiting for confidence. You don't become strong by waiting for strength. Those things are outcomes, not prerequisites. Discipline is built when you act without motivation. Confidence is built when you show up despite doubt. Strength is built when you do what's uncomfortable repeatedly. No one wakes up ready. They wake up committed. And commitment doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what you're willing to do. This is where most people get exposed, because motivation fades fast. But habits remain. If you rely on motivation, your progress will always be unstable. Up one day, gone the next. But if you rely on discipline, progress becomes inevitable. Discipline isn't punishment. It's structure. It's deciding in advance who you are and how you act. So emotions don't get to decide for you. Right now, emotions are running your life. If you feel good, you act. If you feel tired, you stop. If you feel unsure, you delay. That's not freedom. That's slavery to your moods. Discipline flips the script. You act because it's who you are, not because it feels good, not because it's exciting, because it aligns with the future you're building. And let's be clear, the future doesn't care how you feel today. It only responds to what you do consistently. Every excuse you accept today becomes a habit tomorrow. Every habit shapes your identity. Soon you're not someone who tries. You're someone who avoids. That identity is heavy, and once it sets in, it's hard to shake. But it's not permanent. Identity can be rebuilt, one decision at a time. You don't need to fix your whole life today. That's another excuse. You need to win today. One task, one action, one promise kept to yourself. Because self-trust is built in small moments. Every time you do what you said you would do, your brain records it. It starts believing you again. That belief changes how you move, how you speak, how you decide. But every time you quit on yourself, you reinforce doubt. And doubt is loud. It questions everything. It drains momentum. It makes even simple tasks feel heavy. That's why discipline is freedom. It removes negotiation. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" and start asking, "Is this aligned?" Alignment is powerful. When your actions match your goals, your energy stabilizes. You don't waste mental effort deciding. You just execute. Execution builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence fuels consistency. This is the cycle you've been missing. Instead, you've been stuck in another cycle. Think, overthink, delay, feel guilty, repeat. That cycle ends now. Not because you feel inspired, but because you're tired of repeating it. Tired of watching others move forward. Tired of starting over. Tired of knowing you could be more and not acting on it. That frustration is useful. Use it. Channel it into action, not self-criticism. Self-criticism feels productive, but it's not. It keeps you focused on what's wrong instead of what's next. Discipline focuses forward. It asks, what's the next right action? Not the perfect action. Not the big action. The next one. And here's something important. Discipline doesn't mean intensity all the time. It means consistency. You don't need to go extreme. You need to go daily. Small actions done daily outperform big actions done occasionally. That's how identities change. That's how results compound. The version of you that you admire, they're not more talented, they're more consistent. They show up when it's boring, when it's repetitive, when no one is watching. That's where separation happens. Anyone can feel motivated after a video. Few can act when motivation fades. Be one of the few. Decide that excuses no longer get a vote. Decide that discomfort is not a stop sign. It's a direction. Decide that your word to yourself matters. Because when your word matters, your actions change. And when your actions change, your life follows. This is the phase where discipline replaces motivation, where structure replaces chaos, where action replaces intention. And once that shift happens, there's no going back, because you finally understand something powerful. Your life doesn't change when you feel ready. It changes when you decide you're done making excuses. There comes a phase in growth that nobody prepares you for. It's not the beginning. It's not the excitement. It's not even the struggle. It's the isolation. The moment when you realize you no longer fit where you used to belong. But you haven't yet arrived where you're going. This is where most people turn back. Because isolation feels like something is wrong. But it's not. It's proof that change is happening. Up until now, your identity has been shaped by repetition. The things you tolerated. The habits you repeated. The standards you accepted. That version of you is built slowly, unconsciously, without resistance. But the moment you decide to change, your old identity starts fighting back. Not loudly. Subtly. You feel it when old routines stop satisfying you. When conversations feel shallow. When places that once felt familiar now feel heavy. You haven't become arrogant. You've become aware. And awareness creates distance. This is the uncomfortable truth about growth. Before your life upgrades, your environment starts rejecting you. Not because you're better, but because you're different. Your priorities shift. Your tolerance drops. Your patience for nonsense disappears. And suddenly, the things you once laughed at, you can't ignore anymore. The things you once accepted now feel unacceptable. That's not negativity. That's alignment. But alignment has a cost. You will feel misunderstood. You will feel alone in rooms full of people. You will feel like no one really gets you anymore. This is where the weak version of you tries to return. It whispers, maybe you're overdoing it. Maybe you're changing too much. Maybe you should relax and be normal again. That voice is not logic. It's fear of isolation. Because humans are wired to belong, and growth threatens belonging. Here's the reality most people never tell you. When you outgrow your old identity, you temporarily lose connection before you build new ones. This phase feels empty, quiet, lonely, and that's exactly why it works. Because silence forces honesty. No distractions. No validation. No applause. Just you and your thoughts. This is where discipline either becomes permanent or disappears completely. Because without external reinforcement, only internal standards remain. You stop doing things for praise. You stop showing up for attention. You stop performing. And for the first time, your actions are between you and you. This is where identity solidifies. You're no longer asking, will this look good? You're asking, is this who I am becoming? That question changes everything. Identity is not built by motivation. It's built by consistency and isolation. No one sees the workouts. No one sees the late nights. No one sees the discipline. And that's the point. Because identity built in silence is unbreakable. Most people need an audience to stay consistent. They need validation to continue. They need encouragement to not quit. But the strongest version of you is built when no one is watching. This is where excuses come back one last time. They say, you deserve a break. You've done enough. Why push so hard? But here's what you understand now. Breaks turn into patterns. Relaxation turns into delay. Delay turns into regret. So you keep going. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Relentlessly. And this is where loneliness transforms. At first, it feels like loss. Loss of connection. Loss of fun. Loss of ease. But slowly it turns into clarity. Your mind gets sharper. Your focus gets stronger. Your standards get higher. You stop craving distraction. You stop needing constant stimulation. You start valuing depth. Depth in work. Depth in conversation. Depth in purpose. You realize something important. Most people are busy avoiding themselves. That's why silence scares them. That's why discipline intimidates them. That's why your growth makes them uncomfortable, because it reflects what they're avoiding. And when people can't grow with you, they try to pull you back. Not intentionally, instinctively. They joke. They minimize. They question your choices. Not because you're wrong, but because your discipline highlights their comfort, and comfort hates being exposed. This is where you must stay grounded. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't convince. You let results speak, because results silence everything. This phase teaches you restraint. You learn to move without announcing, to improve without broadcasting, to build without needing recognition. And slowly your confidence changes. It's no longer loud. It's no longer reactive. It's calm. You don't need to prove anything, because you know who you're becoming. Identity shift is not dramatic. It's subtle. One day you wake up and realize you don't negotiate with yourself anymore. You don't debate discipline. You don't romanticize comfort. You do what needs to be done, because that's who you are now. And that scares people, because identity is powerful. Once your identity changes, behavior follows automatically. You don't force habits anymore. They align naturally. You don't chase motivation. You generate momentum. You don't fear loneliness. You use it. Because loneliness taught you something valuable. You don't need everyone. You need alignment. Quality over quantity, depth over noise, purpose over pleasure, and eventually something shifts again. New people appear, new opportunities align, new conversations start, not because you searched for them, but because you became compatible with them. Growth attracts growth, but it only happens after isolation, after discipline without applause, after consistency without recognition. After commitment without certainty. This is the price of leveling up, and it's worth every moment. Because the version of you that comes out of this phase is unshakable. They don't fold under pressure. They don't chase validation. They don't fear being alone. They trust themselves, and self-trust is the strongest currency you'll ever own. This is the phase where you stop needing motivation. Because your identity does the work. You don't ask, should I do this? You ask, why wouldn't I? This is where you become dangerous. In the best way. Focused, disciplined, unapologetically aligned. And once you reach this point, there is no going back, because comfort no longer feels safe. It feels limiting. And you've tasted freedom. There is a moment in every real transformation where something clicks. Not motivation, not excitement, acceptance. You realize something quietly but clearly. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to push you every day. No one is going to hold you accountable forever. No one is going to magically fix your habits, your mindset, your situation. And for a second, that realization feels heavy. Because it means responsibility is no longer shared. It's yours. Fully. At first, that feels unfair. You think about how much support others had, how some people got guidance, money, opportunities, how some paths seem easier than yours. But then something shifts. You realize that responsibility is not a burden, it's power. Because if no one is coming to save you, then no one is controlling you either. Your life is no longer waiting on permission. It's waiting on decisions. This is where most people collapse. They feel overwhelmed by responsibility. They feel pressure and interpret it as danger. They retreat back into comfort, distraction, excuses. But pressure isn't punishment. Pressure is clarity. Pressure shows you what matters. Pressure removes nonsense. Pressure forces focus. When responsibility becomes unavoidable, you stop lying to yourself. You stop blaming circumstances. You stop pointing fingers. You stop waiting for motivation. You look at your life honestly and say, "This is mine, not your parents', not society's, not your past. Yours." And that ownership changes how you move. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What am I going to do about it?" That question creates momentum. Because once you accept full responsibility, every excuse dies. You can still feel tired. You can still feel afraid. But you no longer let those feelings decide. You act anyway. This is the phase where discipline deepens. Not because you're excited, but because you understand consequences. You understand that every action compounds. And every inaction compounds too. Skipping one day seems harmless. Delaying one decision feels small. Ignoring one responsibility feels easy. But repeated over time, those choices build a life you don't recognize. That's why pressure is necessary. Pressure forces you to stop drifting. It forces structure. It forces prioritization. It forces maturity. You realize that freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from doing what you said you would do. That's when self-respect grows. Self-respect isn't confidence. It's consistency. It's knowing that when you commit, you follow through. And once you experience that, you don't want to go back. You start organizing your days differently. You protect your mornings. You reduce distractions, not because someone told you to, but because you understand the cost of chaos. Chaos feels exciting, but it keeps you stuck. Structure feels boring, but it moves you forward. This is where your standards rise. You stop tolerating sloppy effort. You stop accepting half-done work. You stop letting small failures slide, not out of perfectionism, but out of respect for your future. You understand that discipline today is peace tomorrow, and pressure sharpens you. It forces you to become efficient. It forces you to become intentional. It forces you to become resilient. Because when no one is coming to rescue you, you learn how to rescue yourself. That builds strength, real strength, not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that shows up when motivation disappears, the kind that keeps going when results are slow, the kind that doesn't need validation. You stop romanticizing success. You stop fantasizing about outcomes. You focus on execution, daily, consistently, relentlessly, and slowly something changes. Pressure stops feeling heavy. It starts feeling familiar. You become comfortable carrying responsibility. You don't panic under stress. You don't collapse under uncertainty. You adapt because you've trained yourself to respond instead of react. This is where leadership begins. Not leadership over others, leadership over yourself. You manage your time. You manage your energy. You manage your focus. You stop giving power to distractions. You stop outsourcing discipline. You become reliable. And reliability is rare. Most people can't trust themselves. They make promises and break them. They set goals and abandon them. But you're different now, because you've accepted that your life is your responsibility. That acceptance doesn't limit you. It frees you. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop blaming the past. You stop needing reassurance. You move. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it's lonely. Even when it's slow. And that movement builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds identity. And identity sustains everything. You no longer ask, "Can I do this?" You ask, "How am I going to do this?" That shift is powerful because it turns obstacles into problems to solve, not reasons to quit. This is the moment where pressure becomes fuel, where responsibility becomes direction, where you stop hoping life will change and start making it change. No one is coming to save you. And that's not scary anymore. That's freedom. Because your future is now in your hands, and you're finally strong enough to carry it. Here's the truth most people refuse to face. Success doesn't come in fireworks. It doesn't come in motivation-fueled spikes. It doesn't come in grand gestures or overnight miracles. It comes in boring days. The days nobody notices. The days you're tempted to quit. The days that feel pointless, repetitive, slow. Those are the days that define you. Consistency isn't glamorous. It doesn't inspire social media posts. It doesn't earn applause. But it compounds. Relentlessly. Silently. Powerfully. The problem is, most people mistake excitement for progress. They wait for energy to show up. They wait for inspiration. They wait for conditions to feel right. But here's the cold truth. Conditions never feel right. Energy comes and goes. Motivation is temporary. Discipline doesn't wait. Consistency doesn't wait. The moment you decide to act regardless, that's when your life changes. Consistency is not about doing everything perfectly. It's about showing up every day, even when it's boring, even when no one notices, even when you feel unmotivated. That's where the real transformation begins. Because growth is invisible at first. It's incremental. It's repetitive. It's dull. And humans are wired to avoid dullness. We crave drama. We crave excitement. We crave instant gratification. But the people who actually win understand this. The daily grind builds empires. The mundane actions create momentum. The boring work compounds into results no one saw coming. Think about it. Every skill, every habit, every achievement started with repetition. No spark, no magic, just persistence. The writer who writes every day eventually publishes a masterpiece. The athlete who trains consistently eventually dominates the competition. The entrepreneur who improves a little every day eventually builds a business others only dream of. And here's the secret most people miss. Consistency is not about intensity. It's about identity. When you show up on boring days, you're not building a result. You're building yourself. Your identity begins to shift. You become the person who shows up. You become the person who doesn't quit. You become the person who finishes what they start. That person becomes unstoppable. Because the world will throw boredom at you constantly. It will throw monotony. It will throw disappointment. Your energy will wane. Your excitement will fade. And if your identity is not strong, you quit. But if your identity is anchored in consistency, you push through. You don't rely on motivation. You don't rely on inspiration. You rely on commitment. This is why the boring days are the real test. When everyone else is chasing spikes, you're stacking bricks. When everyone else is running for validation, you're building infrastructure. When everyone else wants excitement, you're mastering mastery. Mastery is boring. Building real skills is boring. Improving habits is boring. Working while nobody watches is boring. But here's the kicker. Boring days build freedom. Boring days build power. Boring days build unshakable momentum. The moment you embrace the mundane, you step into a world most people never reach. You become someone who doesn't quit when it's hard. Someone who doesn't chase short-term thrills. Someone who understands that real growth requires patience. Consistency teaches patience. It teaches endurance. It teaches focus. It teaches you to ignore noise, to ignore instant gratification, to ignore the world screaming for attention. Because consistency demands sacrifice. It demands that you prioritize your long-term vision over short-term pleasure. It demands that you work when you feel tired. It demands that you keep going when no one else believes. And slowly, it compounds. Your skills multiply. Your habits solidify. Your confidence grows. Your discipline becomes automatic. Your results begin to appear. But the world still won't notice. Because the world rewards spectacle. The world rewards drama. The world rewards noise. Consistency rewards only you.
And that's the point. Because real power doesn't need applause. Real power doesn't need validation. Real power builds quietly, privately, invisibly. The person who masters boring days learns this early. Excitement is temporary. Consistency is eternal. You stop depending on feeling good. You stop depending on energy. You stop depending on someone else's encouragement. You become self-sufficient. You become unstoppable. Here's where many people fail. They confuse growth with entertainment. They confuse action with inspiration. They confuse effort with attention. They want to feel good while building. They want to be celebrated while improving. They want to enjoy the process before doing the work. But that's backward. The process is not enjoyable at first. It is challenging. It is repetitive. It is uncomfortable. And the moment you accept that, you unlock freedom. Because now you're not waiting for conditions. You're not waiting for excitement. You're not waiting for permission. You act anyway. You improve anyway. You win anyway. Boring days build habits that never break. Boring days build skills that can't be faked. Boring days build a mindset that doesn't quit. And that mindset becomes your superpower. It turns obstacles into opportunities. It turns setbacks into lessons. It turns monotony into mastery. The energy you once chased from motivation is now generated internally through identity. You no longer ask, do I feel like it? You ask, what will move me forward today? And you execute every single day. This is where results finally catch up. Because while everyone else is seeking shortcuts, you're stacking bricks. While everyone else is distracted, you're focused. While everyone else is inconsistent, you're unstoppable. And here's the ultimate truth about consistency. It's lonely at first. It's tedious at first. It's boring at first. But boring leads to excellence. Excellence leads to freedom. Freedom leads to legacy. You begin to understand. You don't need inspiration. You need discipline. You don't need applause. You need results. You don't need motivation. You need consistency. And once you master that, you've leveled up in a way that spikes. Drama and short-term thrills never could. So when you feel bored, when you feel unmotivated, when the work feels invisible, smile. Because you are building something no one else can see. You are building identity. You are building momentum. You are building yourself. And that is unstoppable. You will fail. Not maybe, not sometimes, not eventually. You will fail. And you need to accept this right now. Because life doesn't hand out trophies for intentions. Life doesn't reward comfort zones. Life doesn't honor waiting or hesitation. It punishes weakness. It tests patience. It magnifies every flaw you ignore. If you want results, real results, you must develop mental toughness. Mental toughness isn't about being unfeeling. It isn't about hiding emotions or pretending everything is fine.
It's about control. Control over yourself, your decisions, your reactions. It's about showing up even when fear, doubt, or criticism wants to stop you. Because here's the truth nobody tells you. Criticism is inevitable. Pressure is inevitable. Resistance is inevitable. The world will always try to shake you. The world will always test your limits. The world will always make you question your choices. And the moment you let it define you, you lose. Mental toughness is learning to welcome it instead. Pressure becomes your training ground. Criticism becomes your mirror. Resistance becomes your mentor. The person who gives up under pressure will never know what they were capable of. The person who caves under criticism will never discover their own strength. The person who avoids resistance will never achieve growth. But the person who embraces all three, that person becomes unstoppable. Pressure doesn't break you, it reveals you. Criticism doesn't hurt you, it teaches you. Resistance doesn't stop you, it molds you. Every time someone doubts you, every time someone laughs at your ambition, every time someone says you can't do it, that's not a roadblock. That's fuel. Fuel to prove yourself. Fuel to push harder. Fuel to rise higher. Most people fear criticism. They fear judgment. They fear being wrong. But mental toughness isn't about avoiding failure. It's about using failure as an advantage. Every mistake, every criticism, every challenge is information. It's a lesson waiting for you to act. It's data you can use to adjust your strategy, improve your skills, and get stronger. The mentally tough person doesn't run from these things. They lean into them. They analyze. They learn. They grow. And here's a secret. The louder the world doubts you, the stronger you can become if you handle it correctly. Pressure doesn't only test you, it accelerates you. When the stakes are high, when expectations are crushing, when the heat is unbearable, that's when your best self emerges. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. It's exhausting. But the moment you decide to persist anyway, you realize something incredible. You are stronger than you thought. You are capable of more than you imagined. You can survive and thrive under conditions that once seemed impossible. That is mental toughness. It's forged in fire. It's hardened in adversity. It's polished through persistence. And here's the kicker. Nobody will hand you this gift. You must earn it. You must fight for it. You must choose to endure when quitting seems easiest. Most people don't. Most people fold. Most people crumble. But you're learning a different way. You understand that pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is a teacher. Pressure shows you where you're weak. Pressure shows you where you're strong. Criticism is not the enemy. Criticism is a compass. It shows you what needs improvement. It shows you what resonates and what doesn't. Resistance is not the enemy. Resistance is the proving ground. It separates the people who talk from the people who act. This is where mental toughness becomes visible. It's not in how loud you are. It's not in how fast you move. It's not in how many people cheer for you. It's in how you respond when no one is watching. It's in how you handle rejection. It's in how you handle setbacks. It's in how you maintain discipline under pressure. The mentally tough person thrives where others falter. They don't wait for easier conditions. They don't hope for more support. They don't wait for inspiration to strike. They act, they adjust, they endure. And slowly over time that resilience compounds. Because life is not about avoiding challenges. Life is about navigating them. Life is about using adversity as a ladder. Life is about building armor you can rely on in every situation. When you embrace pressure, criticism, and resistance, you stop needing external validation. You stop fearing judgment. You stop hesitating because someone else doubts you. Your actions become unstoppable. Your confidence becomes internal. Your results become inevitable. This is the point most people never reach. They want growth. They want improvement. They want results. But they want comfort too. They want approval too. They want zero resistance. And life doesn't work that way. You can have comfort, or you can have growth. You can have approval, or you can have authenticity. You can avoid pressure, or you can build unshakable mental toughness. You cannot have it all. The choice is yours. And the moment you accept that, you unlock something extraordinary. You stop fearing obstacles. You stop fearing criticism. You stop fearing failure. You move forward anyway, every single time. You understand that setbacks are temporary. You understand that doubts are natural. You understand that discomfort is growth in disguise. And when the world throws the hardest tests, you are prepared. You respond. You adapt. You conquer. Mental toughness is not born from victory. It's born from enduring loss. It's born from withstanding pressure. It's born from using criticism as fuel. It's born from turning resistance into momentum. And once you embrace this, life stops being scary because you know you can survive. You know you can thrive. You know you can handle whatever comes. The mentally tough person doesn't crumble under stress. They don't fold under criticism. They don't quit when resistance shows up. They persist. They endure. They grow. They build an internal fortress. And that fortress makes everything else possible. Because the world will never stop testing you. Life will never stop throwing pressure. People will always doubt you. But once you've built unshakable mental toughness, you stop caring about temporary discomfort. You stop fearing judgment. You stop letting obstacles dictate your pace. You move forward anyway. And that, my friend, is unstoppable power. This is it. The moment where everything you've learned, everything you've built, everything you've endured comes together. You've faced fear. You've battled doubt. You've stared down distractions, pressure, and resistance. And now, you stand here stronger, wiser, unstoppable. The life you want isn't given. It isn't easy. It isn't handed to you on a silver plate. It is claimed. It is fought for. It is earned with every decision, every action, every day you refuse to settle. Remember this, the world will always try to dim your light. Tell you you're not enough, push you to conform. Don't let it. You are not here to fit someone else's story. You are here to write your own. Your energy, your time, your growth, they are sacred. Protect them. Guard them. Honor them. Every challenge you faced was a teacher. Every failure was a stepping stone. Every hard day was shaping you into the person capable of achieving greatness. So rise. Rise above excuses. Rise above fear. Rise above the expectations that don't serve you. Step into your power. Stand tall in your courage. Act boldly. Live unapologetically. Chase your dreams relentlessly. This is your life. Your journey. Your story. And from this moment forward, let every action, every choice, every breath be a declaration. You will not settle. You will not shrink. You will not wait for permission. You will shine. You will conquer. You will become everything you were meant to be. The world is watching. But even if it isn't, it doesn't matter, because you already know your power, and now nothing can stop you.